Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is my show. So, many of us think that when we go to the doctor and we go talk to them about what's going on with all their education, everything they got going on with them, that they're there to, kind of help tell you what's wrong with you, maybe even try to fix what's going on. But what if I told you actually it's the pharmaceutical companies that are telling your doctor what's wrong with you? Check it out. So, let's get started. Howdy, tell them what to do.
Shut up and sit down.
All right, welcome. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about Big Pharma and how they're dictating, really all the way down to what's wrong with us. They're naming diseases. They're doing all kinds of stuff, and with the blessing of the FDA. And I want to cover some of that stuff, so we can all agree that, lifespans are getting longer. People are living longer lives. I mean, the Census Bureau shows that I think we're at like 78.65 years old is the average age in the United States. That's like up from 76 years old, I think, from about 30 years ago. So here's the question, is lengthening our lifespan as important as improving the quality of life that we already have? Do we want to live longer but be all busted up and taking medications all the time? It seems the medications that we take are for symptoms most of the time. They're not solving any kind of a problem. Check it out. 40% of the people that are over 65 are taking 5 or more medications. I mean, seriously? 40% of all people over 65 are taking 5 or more medications. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's popping pills all day long. They must have these gigantic pill boxes as big as a 57 Buick. I mean, it's got to be in order to carry all that with them. So to me, it's unbelievable. It comes in definitions. It comes in all forms. And one of the definitions I think that sends us people down the wrong path and where there's some confusion and some misguidance is the definitions between, or the difference between common and normal. I think people forget which is which. For example, diabetes is common, unfortunately. Diabetes is common, but it's not normal. I mean, do you see the difference? So there was a study done on a group from Bolivia. I was just kind of looking up to make sure it was Bolivia. The stats were, kind of off the health charts for what everyone thought they should be, and I love the should part. So they had a primary diet of fish, veggies, meat, fruit, nuts, grains, seeds, plantains, some other starchy stuff. And so when they got together with them, they started off by giving them a full body CT, that's head to toe, and just to get a starting point. And what they found was crazy. And I'm serious. Some of you are going to think that you're not going to believe me or whatever, but because these numbers are insane. The level of heart disease was 80% lower than the rest of the general population. 9 out of 10 had zero plaque buildup in their heart. That's zero. In one group of 80-year-old men, they had a cardiovascular system that they could compare to a 50-year-old American male. So and now here's a big one, and this is the knockout punch for a healthy diet. In the group that was studied, there was zero, and I'm going to repeat it, zero cognitive disorders. And I'll let that one sink in a little bit, because zero, I mean nothing, nada. This is a perfect example of what can happen when we eliminate garbage from our diets. So we work so hard counting macros, trying one diet or another, when most of us, or the majority of us just need to start eating better, just changing the way we're eating, changing our lifestyles. I love the gym and I love going there. I love the way it makes me feel before, during, and after, the whole thing, I had a back injury a while back, and I couldn't do anything like that. I packed on about 60, 70 pounds. I was depressed. I had a lot of anxiety, all kinds of other stuff that comes with being overweight. I went in for a procedure for where they put the camera down your throat. I forget what that's called. When I got the report afterwards, I was reading the report, and more so what they found really didn't bother me so much because there wasn't really anything. They didn't find anything. But what was my description, and they described me as morbidly obese. Now, I was totally embarrassed first off, and I never thought of myself that way. And I'm a retired firefighter, former military. I play softball all the time. I umpire baseball. I'm in pretty decent shape. And, when did it all get away? They even told me that I was pre-diabetic, and they put me on medication. And I had to start poking my finger every day. I didn't like doing that at all. So I needed to lose it, and I needed to get rid of all of that. I did it. I worked. I lost the weight and all that other stuff. My A1Cs are all back in line. I'm down to a good fighting weight now. Just joking. Anyway, so I digress. Back to the Bolivia people. The people are. I'm going to mispronounce it. Tsimane, Tsimane, with that thing over the top of it. So you can look it up. I'll also put a link down below and all of that, or in the description, or wherever I need to put it. Anyway, all that zero heart disease and no Alzheimer's or dementia, people were assuming that it's because they were so remote. They're in a place where they didn't have any exposure to the onslaught of bacteria and parasites that all of us are warding off every day, and that we deal with in what's a real world. And I'm putting my fingers up in air quotes there. But here's a surprise, and this is what they found. What they did have was a higher rate of infection than we do here in America. And so what was happening? Well, they live on a river, and it was just percolating with parasites and bacteria. Yet they were healthier than us in almost every other way. So they had a lower BMI, body mass index. They had lower blood pressure, lower weight, no heart disease, no Alzheimer's, no dementia. Now, we've been seeing the connection between diet and cognitive disorders, and that connection alone is super exciting. There's a lot further study to be done on that, and it's very exciting to see that some of this stuff can be handled without the medication. It shows that your gut and your brain talk to each other a lot. And it's funny, we say, yeah, I'm overweight, it's in my genes. Well, yeah, it is in your genes, but it's in the ones you're wearing. It's not the ones you think. When you realize that it's your lifestyle that needs to change, it's not your DNA that's causing the problem. I think it's when this realization happens for the general public, when they realize exactly what's going on here, I think it's going to happen in two ways. One of two ways. There's the traditional way, and a lot of people are going to go down in that traditional discovery route with books, seminars, webinars, all those kind of things. And and then there's the other way, which is a lot less appealing, and it's the system will fail, and a failing system is never good. And so what do I mean by that, though? And I'm not just talking about the system of our bodies failing. What I'm talking about is much further reaching than that. I'm suggesting the whole system is going to fail. The system that helps us with our daily lives is going to fail. The burden on our medical system, the insurance companies, the already fragile system could just break it. There's a bunch of new clinics that are popping up, though, around the country, and this is so promising. I saw this doctor speak the other day. That's why I know about the clinics. He opened up one in Cleveland. He only deals with people with gut issues and stuff like that. And he only opened a couple months ago, and he's already got over 3,000 patients. So it's a real problem. People are realizing what's going on. They know the connection between that and the rest of their health problems, because all of this stuff, all the things that we're talking about here, the system's failing and all of that is, all about inflammation, which brings on all kinds of other problems. Hospitals are there to treat symptoms, but they aren't set up for this stuff. Conventional medicine has don't get me wrong, it has a place and it's great. But, using conventional medicine and that's it. It's like having a toolbox with just a hammer in it, not everything's a nail. And I'm just saying, so, take a look at what they did. And, you got to start thinking outside the box. You got to start thinking ahead. And there are progressive thinking things happening now. Look at Reno, Nevada. They looked at their cops, their firefighters, all the ones that were retiring. They looked at their current health conditions, where they were, where they are, where they're going to be, because they can project out, depending on the lifestyle, they can project out pretty good about where you're going to be. And the outlook wasn't pretty at all. The rate of heart disease, heart attack, diabetes in this group is exceptionally high. So some actuary downtown crunched all the numbers. They chunked it up, and they figured out that if something wasn't done like right now, the city's going to be on the hook for millions in healthcare costs. So that prompted them to move towards promoting a change for the firefighters and the cops and the rest of them towards a paleo diet, more towards a paleo, not strict, but kind of that diet, and a lot more exercise to battle the problem. See, this is a huge problem. You know, when the medical burden in the United States reaches about 30 to 35% of the GDP, which is it's not far off, you know, they're finally going to do something about it. You know, so we need to start doing something though right now. We need to start doing stuff at the grassroots level. You need to start at home, bring it to the community. And, you know, and this is how, and that's the only way that it's going to work. We know, you know, about the corrupt, if you will, FDA and our government when it comes to healthcare and wellness. You know, what they've done to us when it comes to fat and sugar and all the BS that they've done for however long they've told us. So why does it seem like, it's always healthcare that's at the breaking point? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, think about it. You know, the first programmable computer, for instance, it was the Z71. It was created in 1936 or 38 or something like that, and it was as big as a living room. I think even the guy designed it in his parents' living room or something like that. Anyway, now we have smartphones that are more powerful than the computers that they're using to sending our folks to the moon. You know, back in the day, it cost them $500 million for them to crack the genome and, you know, our DNA thing and all that other stuff. Now for a couple $100, you can get it done through the mail. You know, Wilbur and Orville Wright, you know, they got in the air in 1903, 2017, Elon Musk is sending cars into space for fun. So I'll get to my point. Why hasn't the healthcare industry advanced with those same leaps? Can anybody answer that at all? It seems the healthcare industry's expenses are going up instead of going down, and that doesn't make any sense. It's not what you'd think could happen if you consider what's called the economics of scale. And for those of you who don't know what that is, economics of scale refers to, you know, how the cost of something, the per unit cost, should reduce when the total output is increased. So the more you make, the less it costs, that kind of thing. So, for example, you know, if there's a big company that's kind of a startup and they're making a tool and they start charging one price for it, the price covers the costs of, you know, having the lights on and all that other stuff, employees and all that. But as they get more orders and they start to grow, they start producing more tools. Most of those other costs stay the same, some of them do. And so the cost per unit goes down. So in the medical system, for some reason, it seems that it's going the opposite direction. You know, what should happen with more procedures, the cost should go down, but it doesn't in the medical industry, and I don't understand it. So if you look around, I think the scary thing is nobody wants to disrupt the cash cow, and I think that's the biggest part of it. They're milking it to death, making more and more money on people that are getting sick with diseases that are completely avoidable. You know, so in short, it's the larger system, as it were. So if the pieces were to come together for healthcare, like it did for computers, flight, and all those things, healthcare would be free. You know, so why doesn't this happen? You know, I heard it put best one day. It was called misaligned forces. And it took me a minute to figure out what they were talking about, but I figured out, and this is how it works. Insurance companies make more money as expenses rise. So the more procedures that are ordered, or tests that are done, and treatments that are assigned, the more insurance company benefits. So it seems counterintuitive. You think that someone would figure this out, but they don't. And that's where Big Pharma comes in. So it seems, you know, strange, insurance companies benefiting for things that don't work well, but our system's failing, but they're making a record amounts of money. Why? Here's the biggest problem of all, and this is my take. It seems like this, and I keep saying, but it gets worse. I'm telling you. When Big Pharma started getting involved and integrated themselves into these sweeping transactions and changes in their industry, they became, like I said, integrated into that system. You know, but here's the deal. Big Pharma, they have stockholders. They have people they have to answer to. So they come from a different world than, you know, the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry answers to the people that they take care of. So selling more drugs like Vicodin, Percocet, you know, and things like that pleases the stockholders and brings them more money. And that's what they're tasked to do. And the tragic thing is that it's not in line with the public health at all. So now right here, I'm going to recommend a book for everybody who hasn't read it, or those that have. Maybe it's a great reminder, and I'm going to put a link for it down below. It's called Catastrophic Care. And I'm going to, let me read just a thing from the cover, because I can't explain the book better than the inside of the cover. I mean, I guess they pay, thousands and thousands to have somebody do that. So in 2007, David Goodhill's father died from infections acquired in a well-regarded New York hospital. The bill for $700,000 was paid by Medicare. Angered, Goldhill became determined to understand how it was possible that a well-trained personnel equipped with world-class technology could be responsible for such inexcusable carelessness. And now a business that failed so miserably could still be rewarded full payment. That's where it threw him off the rails. So he talks about the Affordable Care Act, which is going to do nothing but address the waste of healthcare industry, and which currently costs the country nearly $2.5 trillion annually. And it's there's estimated that over 200,000 Americans die each year from preventable errors. So that's what this book is, and it takes kind of a new approach on that. Go check it out. I'll leave a link down below. Go to Amazon, check it out. If you like it, get it. I recommend it. It's a real eye opener. I mean, take a look at commercials today. I mean, there's no freaking shame. They're so deceiving. They're talking about depression and stuff like that. There's people walking around smiling. Everything's fine. The music's do. Just everything's great and everything's fine. Well, with people with issues like this, I mean, they want anything that they can grab onto. They are looking for a toehold anywhere, anything that'll help them. They're desperate. And when you start showing that kind of stuff, their hearing just shuts off. It shuts off about the time that the side effects start rolling in. And, watching the people throw a frisbee around, listening to music, all is good, right? Well, they don't hear the side effects. Now, I'm gonna just play this quick audio from the Abilify advertisement, and if you're squeamish or frightened, you might want to fast forward through this part. So hold on here for just a sec. I'll be right back.
Abilify is not for everyone. Call your doctor if your depression worsens or you have unusual changes in behavior or thoughts of suicide. Antidepressants can increase these in children, teens, and young adults. Elderly dementia patients taking Abilify have an increased risk of death or stroke. Call your doctor if you have high fever, stiff muscles, and confusion to address a possible life-threatening condition. Or if you have uncontrollable muscle movements, as these could become permanent. High blood sugar has been reported with Abilify and medicines like it. In some cases, extreme high blood sugar can lead to coma or death. Other risks include decreases in white blood cells, which can be serious, dizziness upon standing, seizures, trouble swallowing, and impaired judgment or motor skills.
Adding Abilify has made a difference for me.
Okay, so to start off with, increased infection. If an infection hits you, what would be okay for most of us, might now kill you because you've taken so many of these antibiotics that are so strong, you've depressed your system down to nothing. So it could cause infection. So that's one of the things that could kill you. So there's that. And there's the thing with Abilify and why I chose them. And I don't mean to pick on them, but did you know Abilify, which it's prescribed for depression, among other things, it's the #1 medication sold in the United States. I'm going to let that sink in for just a second. As an antipsychotic medication, this is the #1 selling medication in the United States. Humira, Nexium, they're coming in a second and third. Both of those have to do with gut issues. That's kind of weird, right? So I was listening to the commercial and I noticed another crazy thing. The ad was about 3 minutes long, 45 seconds of sales at the beginning, la 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 la, then almost 2 minutes of side effects warnings. It's like, wait, one of the instructions was don't get an infection. Yeah, how the hell do I do that? I don't, or avoid infection. I mean, how do I do that? Do I use harsh language? I mean, what do I do? I don't mean to pick on Abilify, but damn. Here's some of the other stuff I found. Abilify is a drug that's supposed to be combined with other medications to fight off depression and suicide. And, and did you hear what one of the first warnings was? May increase suicidal thoughts. Yeah, that one. So following the drug company line of thinking, they must be developing another drug to counter the side effects of that one. So then you'll be on 3 drugs and then possibly a 4th anyway. So Abilify was approved for psychosis. So I know we do have a problem here in the United States, but not enough to make this the #1 selling drug in the country, right? I mean, come on, somebody help me out on this one. You see all the research for medication is supposed to be evidence-based, right? So, but it's not. Let me explain. Abilify was approved for psychosis. And obviously we do have a mental health problem in America right now with mass shootings and other stuff and recent events and blah, 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 blah. But damn, that just doesn't seem enough to put it as the #1 drug, as I said. So many times Abilify is prescribed as an off-label drug. And now I don't know if anyone, I don't know if you know what that means, and I didn't know what it means, so I had to look it up. I mean, I love Google. And I was like, holy crap. So what does it mean? It sounds shady, right? Well, it kind of is. Off-label means doctors are prescribing this for things that it wasn't intended to be used for, and which means that it's stuff that it's never been researched to be used for that use. I hope that made sense. So, I mean, it's so convoluted that that's kind of my paraphrasing it. So the way Abilify has become the #1 selling drug in America, as I said, we're not that crazy, but the way that it's become #1 in America is through off-label prescribing. I know it seems illegal, right? Or at the least unethical, but here it is. The FDA is way deep in this, go figure. Doctors have been given the authority to prescribe any medication off-label if the FDA has approved it for something, anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, just something. So, and here's another little secret, and this is a little crazy. They only need to test the drug on population segments. That's pieces of the population, just what it sounds like. And what that means is it's tested and approved. When they say it's a tested and approved for adults, that's who it's done. That's the segment. And so did you hear the disclaimer? Not for children or older adults. That means it hasn't been tested for them. Now, here's where it gets interesting. It's still prescribed because doctors can do it off-label medication. So basically a doctor can put me on birth control if he wanted to. So that's how they can prescribe this to children, teens, adolescent, and older people, is because they can prescribe it as an off-label medication. So drugs like Abilify and antidepressants were never studied or never intended to be used on teens or adolescents, but it's prescribed every day. America has the largest prescribed drug in the country. They're making over $7 billion a year selling it. $7 billion with a B. I think the alarms about all these dangerous and sometimes deadly side effects that these antipsychotics are building up, that we're giving our children, our elderly, they're mounting up, and it's been going on for a really long time, and I think it's about to break. Now that I dumped all that on you, here's the good news. It's all fixable. It's super easy, and y'all gonna be surprised what it takes. Doctors these days believe that most of our health problems are directly related to our gut and bile and gut bacteria and all of that stuff. I won't go into the particulars of that right away. All these problems with depression, digestive issues can be stopped or repaired with just a change in diet, exercise, maybe some rest. Here's a quick example. My doctor relayed this story to me. I guess it came from somebody else because I was asking him his opinion on Abilify and kind of filling in some of the blanks for myself because I don't take any of that, and some other medication questions that I had for him and how it works for him in his business. So he told me this story about a kid. It was with another doctor that this doctor was treating the kid. The kid was like 8 years old. The kid had created his own really super strict routine, even at 8. And if he ever deviated from it, his family broke the routine or anything, it'd bring down the world on everyone. His environment, was fairly normal. His diet wasn't good. Toaster biscuits and a Pop-Tart, some waffles thrown in occasionally. Is basically all processed foods. His environment, wasn't just, if his environment wasn't just right, he'd throw temper tantrums. I mean, like ridiculous ones. Made vacations and long trips completely out of the question. There's some kids with the same disorder and they're labeled, OCD, or they're floating somewhere in the autism spectrum. So after a long time, the doctors and the specialists and in a long line of doctors and specialists, and all of a sudden, boom, OCD, autism, sensory processing disorder. They just started coming down the line with all of these things. So now they finally had a label, which is, heck, I guess that's great, but that doesn't solve the problem, and they didn't know where to go from there. And of course, the doctor wanted them to start a regime of, antidepressants like Ritalin. And at first, they were happy with the results, but he started getting all those side effects like gut pain, dry mouth, irritability, headaches, sleep disruption. And after all, after all that, not one of the doctors thought about his diet. And I know we're all like, when I spelled out what his diet was, I know you're all like, oh my God, that's just garbage. And that's the first thing all of us focused on. But nobody thought about a nutrient deficiency or gut issues. I mean, we're talking about OCD and stuff, not digestive issues, right? Well, wrong. Again, we go into these things where the brain and the gut are kind of tied together. When his parents took him to this other specialist, and I think this is where he got the story, he finally ran some tests, and he found he was deficient in vitamin D, B12, folate, iron. The bacteria gut was going crazy. They didn't, I don't know what they expected when his diet was basically flour and sugar. So, and here's another crazy thing that I didn't know. When they tested his levels, he had higher levels of arsenic than it was allowed, or it was approaching off the charts. And it was because he was drinking rice milk. He was guzzling that crap down. And rice milk has arsenic in it, I guess. I don't drink it. I'm going to look a little more into that. So they got him on a better diet. It was a battle, but they did. They finally got him on a better diet, little changes at a time, little changes here. I mean, just changing the the type of toaster biscuit. I mean, I guess it was just little incremental changes. But after 2 months, the parents started noticing some changes. And they started noticing that he was more agreeable, a little less irritable. He was a little more willing to have some change. About 4 months later, some teachers started calling. They wanted to figure out what the parents had done. Where did you take that kid? What did you do with him? After about 7 months, all of the issues that they were experiencing before were gone. Okay? He was living his life normal as you and me. So the takeaway here is, if we want to make over, or if we want to make over your little personal ecosystem that you have, you need to start with your diet. Restructure it. And then everything else will fall in place. When I talk about ecosystem, I'm talking about your whole, the gut, the all the stuff that goes on there, the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, all of that stuff. It's an ecosystem. It all lives in there and takes care of our system. Stuff we don't like to talk about. It's kind of gross, but we don't like to talk about it. And most of the time, it's a nutrient deficiency, not a medication deficiency. Think about that one for a minute. It's like you have this. Well, let's put you on this medication that you're deficient in this. Or no. So many people walk around thinking they're broken or something's wrong with them, but they have fatigue. So it could be a deficiency of folate, B12, something like that. Or they're depressed, or something like that. We know that 20 to 30% of the people with depression have hypothyroidism. So let's treat that and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? So as many of you know from my website, I try with the natural stuff first, and then let's work into supplements and then the other stuff later. Let's not just kill a fly with an elephant gun here. So, don't get me wrong. There are depression out there. There is depression out there that is situational depression, and I'm not talking about that. So remember that when I'm talking about the next part, because I hate labels. And here's why. And look at that label for depression, for example. The definition leaves a gap you can drive a truck through. Think about it. It's like this big blanket definition for anything. I investigated it. It's been used for everything. It includes neurologic issues, behavioral issues, well, and of course, psychological issues. And some people feel, some doctors and stuff feel that it was, done on purpose to create this wide sweeping label called diseases. And here's where Big Pharma starts stepping in. Big Pharma loves having things labeled as diseases. And why? Does anybody know why? Because it takes medication to solve a problem, right? Get it? So, take a long, hard look at, Viagra, for instance, okay? Just in general, in 1989, the British company Pfizer, the scientists Peter Dunn and Albert Wood, came up with this drug. It's sildenafil citrate or something to that effect. And they thought it would be good for treating high blood pressure, angina, chest pain, kind of that associated cornea disease stuff, heart disease, whatever. When it was initially produced, it didn't work very well for any of that stuff, not even blood pressure. But they found it had a side effect that would stand up on its own. And I told someone I would throw that in there. Sorry, and they were pleased, and so were many others. But no, to be serious, that now they could have just started advertising that as a way to help guys that are impotent or any of those kind of things, but that wasn't satisfying them. That wasn't going to get them where they needed to be. They needed to have a disease named after it. They needed something that was super cool, that would scare you, something that would hit you where it counts kind of disease. So they went out there and they hired a advertising agency, believe it or not, and that is who came up with the name erectile dysfunction. I'm serious. I had no idea. This absolutely floors me that an advertising agency came up with a disease. Okay, here's the details. Ken Begasse, Begasse Jr., look him up. He was with Klein Davis and Mann. They're the ones that came up with the name erectile dysfunction, and they're the ones that started taking it to the next level, because just calling it that wasn't enough. They liked it because it was on the other side of impotence, which was the first major decision that Pfizer made with the ad agency, and it was only made to remove the social stigma. So they needed to break that down. Now they can move, once they got rid of that social stigma, they were able to move on to the general public, and in some places. In some places, they call this the long con. Now, that's what I would call it, because now they have a name, and it's on TV. They started telling everyone. They started, putting out all kinds of information on this, putting it in magazines. Then people started seeing these things in these magazines. They're like, oh, I got that. I got erectile dysfunction. So they'll go to their doctor, and they'll tell their doctor about it. Look, doc, I got this. And their doc's going to look at his information, which he got from Big Pharma also, which he got from Pfizer. It says, well, yeah, they say that erectile dysfunction is this, this, and this, and you do have this, this, and this. So, well, I'll be damned, you got that. So the doctors are looking at the same list and saying, oh, yeah, you got ED. So the doctors start prescribing, and away we go. So the larger problem here is now we have advertising agencies creating situations for drugs to be needed. So Pfizer found out, they found a gold mine, the honeypot, if you will, in the medication industry. That this is to find medication so you can treat the healthy. Now, I'm going to end it with this. The CEO of Merrick put this most distinctly, and I'm going to try and quote him, but it's a little bit of a paraphrase. But he said, the real money in drugs is to start selling them to healthy people. And did you know, that's his quote. And did you know the United States and New Zealand are the only countries in the world that have they're the only ones that allow direct consumer advertising for drugs? So think about that. Next time your doctor tells you that he wants to prescribe a medication for you or something like that, think about maybe changing my diet, maybe something else might be okay. So go ahead and do yourself a favor and do a little research first. Anyway, have a great day. Remember, be brave, be courageous, and be yourself.